My plan was that when my kids were older, like kind of how they are now, and more independent, and I didn't have to necessarily have to have a caregiver, and I could go and swim whenever I wanted to, that I would pick it back up and actually start to compete again too. And then I got attacked by a shark.
Welcome to the Injured Athletes Club podcast, the show that helps athletes cope with sports injuries and bounce back stronger. I'm mental skills coach, Carrie Jackson. We're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us.
And I'm journalist Cindy Kuzma. This week, our guest is Lyn Jutronich, a swimmer who lived one of her worst nightmares, and really one of all of our worst nightmares, I think. She was attacked by a shark during an ocean swim. And that actually isn't the only injury that she has experienced. But before we get into the interview, we wanted to share one of our key resources with you.
One of the things that Lyn talks about in this podcast episode is the physiological symptoms she was experiencing. And it took her a little while to realize that some of those symptoms were also psychological. So that is exactly why we wrote the book Rebound. When you are an injured athlete, oftentimes the support that you're getting has to do with your physical recovery and not always the mental, emotional aspects of your recovery. And that is exactly what Rebound does for athletes. It gives you all of the tools that you need in order to come back with resilience and navigate your rehab and navigate the next steps of your recovery through that process. So Rebound, train your mind to bounce back stronger from sports injuries. You can find it wherever you love to buy your books, and you can also get a Kindle version, and there's also an audiobook available where you get to hear me reading directly to you from the book as if I'm walking the journey with you. So we hope that you use that resource or share it with a friend, share it with an injured athlete, share it with your PT, whoever you feel like needs that resource to work on the psychology of injury.
Yes. Thank you for that, Carrie. And also a huge thank you to our exclusive sponsor for this season, Lever Movement. They're the creators of the Lever System, a portable lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. You'll hear more about them later in the episode, but hey, spoiler alert, you can use code INJURED20 for 20% off any device. And with that, let's get on to this week's show. Our guest, as I mentioned, is Lyn Jutronich. She's a swimmer who competed in college at Yale University and continued with the sport recreationally as an adult. She lives near San Diego and works as a college admissions advisor and also medical school admissions advisor. And she has 3 kids. You'll hear her mention them off and on in this episode. They're very sporty as well. And as I mentioned, in 2022, she was attacked by a shark off the coast of Del Mar Beach in California. Not only that, 3 years later, she had another accident, and you really just won't believe the circumstances under which that occurs. And she's still very much in the healing process. So we really appreciated her taking time to kind of both talk through the initial incident, the shark attack, what happened, the healing, and what a long process that was, and also share how she kind of had to go back to almost the beginning and start a whole new healing process all over again. And what I really appreciated her talking about the second time, Carrie, you just mentioned how she had symptoms that at first she thought were physical, and eventually she realized they were psychological. And she's still kind of early in her physical healing now, but she knows that she needs to be on top of that and needs to be aware of her mental and psychological health in addition to her physical health. And we certainly hope that she has a smooth recovery, but we know that she knows that that is equally important to pay attention to. And I hope that that serves her well in addressing that early when it can be most helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciated too the conversation when she talked about the fact that as much as we wish this wasn't true, that recovery is often not linear, and that even if sometimes it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or 3 steps forward, 1 step back, that you're still moving in the direction of recovery, and to, and how to navigate those moments where it's not linear and you might be having a dip, and how do you still trust the process and trust that you're moving forward. I also really appreciated some of the conversation around some of the messaging that people get, I think, sometimes with being injured, and that you have to, always be positive and always be resilient and never have a bad day. And that sometimes those sentiments are used in a way that are actually detrimental, and that sometimes injured athletes then feel like there's something wrong with them if they're not being positive. And that is just absolutely unrealistic and not true. And so you'll hear us talk about that in the podcast episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a heads up too, Lyn does talk a lot about coping with PTSD, and she does explain, in detail what happened in both of her incidents and accidents. So that's just something to take care of and be aware of if those are situations where you've had trauma in your past and you're careful about those things. So we are so grateful to her for sharing this with us. And we know that just hearing her story and what she's been through will be really helpful to so many people. So thank you, Lyn, for sharing. Thank you for listening. Here is our interview with Lyn. Lyn, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on the Injured Athletes Club.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Well, we have a little saying around here, which is that we're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us.
Yep.
We know injuries can be a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs along the way, and illness too. And we know you've dealt with both in recent days and years. So, Lyn, when we ask this question, we really want to know the answer. How are you doing today?
Today, it, as usual, has had its ups and downs. I'm doing pretty good. I'm healing from my injuries, either on target or above target. But it's not going to be a linear journey, which is something that's been hard for me to wrap my head around. So I have bad days and I have good days. I mean, kind of like life, but these are more extreme. So today started out as kind of a bad day. I had a lot of pain. I didn't feel so good. But then once I got up and got going, I've been feeling a little bit better. But I've had to learn that sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So
yeah, it's hard, right? And like the kind of the acceptance that it often is not a linear process.
Yeah.
And when you have that setback, to not panic and think like, oh my gosh, it's all going to go backwards now. Like That's a difficult thing to wrap your head around. I'm glad the day has moved into a different direction for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So we want to get into both of your incidents. I guess one isn't technically an accident, but I wanted to start by talking a little bit about your history with swimming. Could you tell us more about how you got into it, what it brought to your life, and how you realized you wanted to continue competing even in college?
Sure. Well, most of my parents were born and raised in California, and they had my sister and brother out here as well. And they kind of all grew up swimming, surfing, doing all the Southern California things. I had the misfortune that my parents moved to actually right outside of Chicago. Evanston, Illinois was where I was born. We lived in Northfield. And my sister continued swimming there. If you're from Chicago, it was called New Trier West back then. It's called New Trier now, I think. And she swam there. And I was much younger. I'm 14 years younger than my sister, 18 years younger than my brother, about same parents. So I was a bit of a oops.
Surprise!
And so I don't even remember. My mom said that as a baby, I was at all the morning practices. I was at the meets, just, doing my thing. And then I basically just kind of started swimming in the summer at the local summer league. And I really enjoyed it. And it was, then we had moved to Erie, Pennsylvania. So when I was about 5 or 6, we moved from Illinois to Erie. And again, it was just kind of a thing that our family had done. It was pretty popular in the area. And then at about 8, I started swimming year round. So doing club. And it's also kind of when I realized, I told somebody this story the other day. I can't remember who. They felt bad for me. But like every little girl, I wanted to be a gymnast or a ballet dancer or, something like that. But I'm 5'10", or I was before this accident. I'm going to lose a couple inches. And even back then, I wasn't necessarily the biggest girl, but it was too big for gymnastics, right? And my body just wasn't built for it, even if, because there are some taller girls that can do it. But when I was at 8, I just couldn't, I remember this, I couldn't pass the levels in gymnastics, and my friends were passing, and I was with like younger and younger kids. And the gymnastics teacher said to me, "You swim too, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, I think you should give that a go. And like, as much as it kind of stung as an 8-year-old, she was perfectly correct. She was absolutely 100% correct. Actually, my very first swim coach was Elaine Kuzma, by the way, which is why I asked you
Oh, funny.
If that was yeah. So that was my club starting at the Y, because in Erie, clearly you can't swim outside year round. So that's when that began. But I didn't get like, I was good, right? I was fine. I was good. I was going to meets. It was, we were younger, but I wasn't like destined to be a champion swimmer at that point. And then freshman year of high school, they discovered by accident, they had put the freshmen, including me and one of my friends, in the 500 freestyle, which in high school swimming is the longest distance that you can have. And my events before that had been my coach really thought I was going to be an IMer and a butterfly and a backstroker. Like, fair enough. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. I'll try hard. I'll keep improving. So the 500 free was kind of like a gentle hazing thing. And I'll never forget that day, because like I felt pretty good during the race, but I didn't know. I'd never swum that long before. I noticed I was lapping some of the other swimmers, but to be honest, the other high school wasn't super strong, which is why they were like, oh, put the freshmen in whatever events, right? But then when I finished, I looked up at the scoreboard and I had broken our record, our school record.
Wow.
And yeah, everybody was like silent, because they were like, what just happened here?
Oh my goodness.
So then it was found out that I am a distance swimmer. So I continued swimming in Erie for a couple years. It's bragging, but it's true. I still have the 500 free record at my high school from 1986.
Awesome.
And the coach there is actually somebody I swam with. He was 2 years older than me, and I was best friends with his sister. So it's when I go back there, I'm like, I'm in like a little time warp going on here. But Erie was decent swimming, but it wasn't top of the line. And for a lot of reasons, but one of them swimming, I ended up going to a boarding school called Mercersburg my senior year. And that was kind of it wasn't it wasn't like one of those ski boarding schools where you don't really go to class and you ski a ton. It was both. It was academic and very athletic, especially for swimming. It was very well known for swimming. And that's where I was like, okay, I am not the best one around here, and I'm going to have to, not that I didn't work hard before, but I was like, ooh, okay, all right, this is good. And it was great. It was challenging, but it was fun. It was kind of what I'd been looking for. And so that year went great. And then at some point, my coach had contacted the Yale coach and said, hey, I think this girl will be a great fit, not just for your program, but she's got the grades, she's got the test score, she's kind of got the other stuff that'll make your life a little bit easier. So I did apply to Stanford and get in there, but I don't know how old you guys are. I feel like you're a little bit younger, and I don't know how much you know swimming, but Janet Evans was my same class year, and she went to Stanford. And then Summer Sanders was the year behind me, and she also went to Stanford. So part of my choice to go to Yale was that I wouldn't be the best, but I'd make the team and I would be contributing, and I wouldn't be lapped by Olympians on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. So once you graduated and, moved into adulthood and all of that, how did your relationship with swimming kind of move through? And I know it sounds like maybe there were some times when you were swimming and when you weren't swimming as much. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, I moved to New York City with two of my best friends who are also swimmers. And we kind of set up camp there. And I didn't swim very much. I think we all had a membership to the 90th Street Y, and we would occasionally swim laps there. But we were just more working and kind of having fun and all of that stuff. And plus, I've always been the type, and this is true, I think, of a lot of athletes, is that if I don't have a specific event to train for, it's really hard for me to go and motivate to do it to the point where I would be satisfied with the workout, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I didn't really do anything in New York or after college until I moved out to San Diego, which was in 96. So 2 years after I graduated, I moved out here, and I still was mostly swimming in the pool. There's a million master's programs out here. There's a ton of triathletes up and down the coast. San Diego is like a mecca. And so I was swimming I would just for exercise and because it's so familiar, right? It's hard to start something. It's what I was like. I was like, what else do? I don't understand. I don't like to run. Like I tried it. I really tried hard. I hated it. So I started just training with them. And then, I actually forgot about this. I was so, it was still young and I was so poor that I couldn't really afford the entry fee to the ocean swims, right? Because they're not cheap. Same thing with triathlons. And again, when you're young and you're 22, and I'm not sure if I had a job at this point. So what I did was that I would go to all the lifeguard tryouts with no. I was not going to be a lifeguard, but it was a free quote race for me because there were buoys, there were other people doing it. I got to fake compete against. They had no idea that they were competing against me, but I was competing against them. So I did a bunch of those. Then I took a couple years off because I kind of got a job that required more hours. Like whatever it was, I took a break. And then in my late 30s, one of my husband's friends was like, there's a group of us that swims in the ocean every Sunday morning and you should come out. And I'm like, oh, I'm in terrible shape. And they're like, it's all levels. And I'm like, but again, this is, if you guys know this in your head, you're like, I don't want, like, I know you guys might still think I'm good, but like, I'm not here where like I was when I was 20. So finally they convinced me though to go out and I did, and I just loved it. It was unlike being in a pool, the ocean is different every day, right? And honestly, like it's a little scary sometimes, whether that be if you're worried about marine life, as we like to call it, or big waves or a strong tide or whatever it is, murkiness versus being able to see the bottom. But that's what was so cool is that even if we had the same route that we did, that probably the group before that had been passed down from generation to generation of people that swam at Del Mar at 8:00, the same path or route, same endpoint, and then you return. But every day could be a completely different workout. So I started doing that just like once a week, and I got back into it, and I was starting to feel back in shape. And then I went to twice a week because they did it on Fridays too. And then I did a couple races at that point where I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. But again, they were more kind of like, I don't know. We did it with a group of swimmers that were fun. I could afford the entry fee at this point, which was good. And then I had kids, and then that kind of interfered with any sort of training schedule. And to be fair, if I had wanted it more, I would have made it work. And I did want it, but like it was also very hard to organize childcare, right? And my husband was also doing his own thing on Sunday mornings, and it was I'm the main caregiver, so it was off and on through when my kids were growing up. It was kind of spotty. Like I'd be able to go for a couple months when baseball season was not going on, and then once that started again, they're like, "Bye, Lynn, see you in a couple months," So, and I wasn't really competing at this point anymore, so. My plan was that when my kids were older, like kind of how they are now, that and more independent, and I didn't have to necessarily have a caregiver, and I could go and swim whenever I wanted to, that I would pick it back up and actually start to compete again too. And then I got attacked by a shark. So the universe was like, oh, guess what? Maybe not. You're maybe not going to do that. And I was like, really. I don't know how to explain it. I was like, it was a simple plan. Like, come on, universe.
Right. I wasn't asking for that much.
Really, it was that. So, but then I was like, we'll talk about this later too. It still is a goal of mine, to be honest. Although my husband says that if I get back in the ocean, I have to go live with my mother. So, but it's definitely less likely. I don't know. I'm trying to stay positive on it, but I'm also being realistic. So,
Yeah. Well, we've gotten to that point, Lyn. Let's talk about it. I know.
Out of the bag or
sorry.
The shark. No. I'm just teasing. Like the shark's out of the water.
Yeah,
So here we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you've told the story many times and then sometimes not wanted to tell it, which we want to talk about too. But, for our listeners, can you share what happened, kind of the brief version of what took place that day?
Yes. And then I do when you asked that question before about when you want to tell it and when you don't, like that's very interesting to me because I've thought a lot about that, not just when you brought it up, but over the past couple of years. But okay, so it was in a stage where I'd been swimming fairly consistently, but I'd found a swim partner that I'm not an early morning person. I never have been. And most swimmers out here, one, because the ocean conditions are better in the morning. And then two, they have like 9 to 5 jobs that they have to go to. So most swim groups meet at like 6 or 7 in the morning. Like 8 o'clock on Sunday was one of the latest ones. So I found a guy in the group that we were roughly the same speed that was also not a fan of mornings and also had a flexible job. His name's David. If I say David, that's who I'm referring to, my swim partner. So we had taken to swimming with the larger group on Sundays at 8, but then during the week, we would meet up at various beaches at like 9. All right. Just even that 1 hour seemed to make a difference.
Yeah.
So we had done that. It was Friday, November 4th, and we usually swim together on Fridays. And so we'd met up and same thing. It was the same route as the Sunday swim because it's, you have a good endpoint, you have a good site. Roughly how long it is. We call it a long mile. I don't know if runners do the same thing. It's like I guess exactly now, but like, by like depending on the conditions, it could be like a mile and a half, or it could be like 8 minutes there and back just one way because of the current. So we had met and we had finished our swim, and we were kind of treading water is the best description of it. But we both had wetsuits on, so when you have a wetsuit on, you kind of float. Like you don't have to do a lot to stay in that position. And so we were just kind of talking, trying to decide if we were going to go have breakfast, like what was it, what's coming up. And I felt a huge rush from below straight into my seat, like literally like right in the tushy.
Okay.
So, and I had no idea what it was. We hadn't seen anything. So I actually went, I go, ow. And then immediately I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting attacked by a shark, because there's nothing else in the water that would do something like that to you with that
kind of force.
And it felt like, I mean, again, like it was like exactly the right place to get hit. Like, I feel like if I had gotten hit in the ribs with that force, it would have broken ribs. It was a lot. And I was really swollen, and I had a lot of hematomas down in that area. Very thankful I was wearing a wetsuit. I also would have been completely scratched up if I hadn't been. And so then as I and I wasn't like jetted up. Like, it wasn't like Jaws where you throw them in the air. Thank goodness. But I kind of went up and then I went down a little bit. And when I came down, the shark had clamped on my right thigh, because I was still kind of in that seated upright position, but there were two really good things about it. It hadn't gotten a good grip. It was kind of a side grip. Like, it was like the side, the teeth had gotten, it was the length of my thigh and had gotten just imagine like biting into an apple with the side of your mouth. I don't know if there's, and then two things, and this all, I marvel at this because this all took 5 to 10 seconds tops, right? Yeah. And I had so many thoughts. I had the first thought was, whoa, it's not as big as I thought it was going to be. And that even though it was pretty big, like it was, I mean, its jaw was bigger than my thigh, right? Like the side of its jaw was bigger than the length of my thigh. And it was big. It was estimated to be 8 to 10 feet, they said, from the size of the bite and from what my swim partner saw of the fin, because he saw the fin afterward. But I was like, when you do think of like Jaws, you think of like bus-sized sharks, which do exist, but this was a juvenile, in air quotes. So I thought that, and then I thought, we were locking eyes too. Like, it's a little black eye. was looking, like we were looking at each other in the eye. And I joke that maybe it was like it's like a Far Side cartoon where both of us are like, ah, like the eye contact is,
right.
we're both terrified because he thought I was a seal and I'm not a seal. And what is this thing?
Right.
So the next thing I was like, oh, I know I'm supposed to punch it. I'm supposed to poke it in the eye. I'm supposed to go for the gills. Like I know there's something I'm supposed to do, but I didn't want to do it because there were so many teeth. And that is like accurate. If anything that you see of like, again, cartoonish or movie stuff is that there's just so many big teeth, even in a juvenile. And I didn't know this till later, but like I can see the rows, and I even have a scar on the side of my thigh that has the 3-row punctures right there from the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what happened was that fortunately, before I had to decide whether I should fight this shark or not, it had released. And again, because it hadn't gotten a good grip on me, it kind of like twisted and then released instead of chunking back, which would have taken like a large portion out of my thigh. But it actually like let go and then went away. And most likely, again, either it was like, wait, this thing is not what I thought it was going to be. I might have been bigger than it thought once it saw the whole, it only seen my butt from the bottom. And then the shark researchers told David and I that it also could be taste, that great whites actually have they're pickier than people think, that they are looking for a very particular cuisine and makeup of the body, and it's seal. They want a lot of fat. They don't want a lot of bone and muscle. So yeah.
They're foodies.
Yes. So I don't know why, but it released rather than rather than continuing to attack or to chunk. Mm-hmm. So then I called to David and I said, David, there's a shark and I've been bit. We've got to get to shore. I've been bit. And he hadn't seen me get bit, but he'd seen the shark. And so he said to me, Lyn, there's a shark. We got to get to shore. And then he started to just bolt towards shore. And I was like, oh, he's going to leave me.
He doesn't know.
I didn't think that. I was like, oh, and then I was like, David, I've been bit. I've been bit. And then he came back. And then it's weird because we were calm, but not calm at the same time.
Yeah.
But we linked our arms together so that one, he could help me in, and two, to appear bigger if the shark was like, maybe I do want to try again, or that maybe that one tastes different. I don't know. So, and that's kind of how we swam into the shore. We were a good 300 to 400 yards out, and it took, I don't know how long, but I would estimate it took at least 10 to 15 minutes because I wasn't much help. And we were kicking, and then occasionally we were stopping, and David was trying to signal the lifeguards.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm curious too, even before, like you had mentioned, knowing that there's marine life in the ocean, like, and what you knew about what you were supposed to do. Like, how much did you ever think about this possibility, or like, was there training that you do before you go into the ocean?
Okay.
Yeah. And I think almost every ocean swimmer and surfer and whatever thinks that, because well, it is also sharks are sensationalized and they're everywhere, and there's Shark Week, and now there's like Shark Week on another channel, and there's this and there's that. So, and I used to actually, like, I would ask, I probably asked David, because I was like, this was before I was attacked. I was like, they say the odds of getting attacked by a shark are 1 in whatever, 400 million. Let's just say that. I don't know if that's true or not. And I'm like, but they're not counting, like, they're counting people that live in the middle of the United States,
right, or don't go in the ocean,
or people that just don't like to swim. Like that is not. And then I was like, and statistically, like you would think that, just like the more often you go in, the more likely it would be that you would get attacked. And then somebody else was like, kind of not fighting that, but was like, no, I think it's just because you have to be in a very specific time. Like you have to be at the wrong time at the wrong place. Right. Mm-hmm. So I actually thought about it a lot, and I thought about it mathematically a lot as well.
Yeah.
But you just do it because, one, it's incredibly unlikely, even if you do count just the people who go in the ocean. So you're just like, you have to keep convincing yourself, like, it's very unlikely, it's very unlikely, it's very unlikely. Right.
Okay. But so it's sort of like a thought that you recognize that it's a possibility, but it's not something that it's sort of front of mind every time you go into the water. Or did it feel like front of mind every time
Maybe
you get
not front of mind, but back of mind.
Okay. Yeah. Lyn, I would love to go back and hear, because I think a lot of people are going to identify with what you guys were sort of alluding to, the two of you were alluding to, with like sometimes you want to share your story and sometimes you really don't. And I think that comes up for a lot of my injured athletes and sort of navigating like how do I know what that line is and when I want to share and when I don't. So I would love to hear more about that experience from you.
Yes. And this has been, the past 3 years, not even with don't mind the accident that we're going to, I'm sure, talk about at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for about 6 months, I was healing, and I was in pretty good spirits. And again, you can tell, like I have I have a humorous take on life for the most part, right? And so, like everything was like kind of super weird, but fine in my head. But then I started. You go out into the community, and I live in a small community, and it's great. And I was a very visible member of my community because of my involvement with my kids' activities, with the PTA and the baseball league and this and that. Like a lot of people knew me and knew who I was. And then the news spreads, and then you can't go to the grocery store or Marshalls or wherever you want to go, or even like you're at your kid's baseball game. And here's the thing: this is what I want to say. I totally would have done this myself. Gone up to somebody and been like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Tell me, you have to talk. That's crazy. Tell me about it." Right? Like, I am not. I don't want to. Like, people that have done this to people before, just don't feel bad, because you don't know until you've had something like this happen how unsettling that can be. So I ended up getting pretty serious PTSD, but it didn't start until about 6 to 8 months after the accident. And what I've found over the past 3 years is that if I bring up the attack, or if like this is a scheduled interview that we're doing and I'm mentally, yes, we are going to talk about the shark attack, I'm totally fine with it. If I'm out and about and somebody brings it up, then I like freeze. And then, and then the PTSD got to the point where I just wouldn't go out anymore. So, but that's to this day, again, as you can tell, I have no problem talking about it, but I'd still get that, like if like I said, if I'm just out and about kind of doing my business and somebody well-meaning or curious or whatever asks about it, I'm kind of like, I just made a crossbar with my arms for all your listeners, like an American,
Yeah, that is really interesting too, because I do think people who haven't been through something like this don't understand like that kind of timeline issue either, where you can sort of feel like things are okay, or you can have one feeling and then that can change. Talk to us a little bit more about like your emotions and your physical healing because I think you did your first interview from the hospital.
We'll go back to again, I was still after we swam in, and the lifeguards didn't come out to help us because they didn't realize that we were in our heads we were making our way to the shore, and my swim partner was mad. He was so mad because he would stop every however long and be like waving his arms like crazy. But they were still like, "Oh, look at those good swimmers out there doing whatever with their arms," So after I got in, then the lifeguards came down, and David was like, "She's been attacked by a shark. We've got to get her help." Yeah. But the head lifeguard came over, like the guy that it's his like career job to be a lifeguard, and so he knows everything and in charge and everything like that. So he takes over and he cuts off my wetsuit leg so he can take a look at the wounds. And he said, "Okay, it hasn't hit an artery. You're not bleeding that much. I think you're going to be just fine." And then at that point forward, I knew that it was like I probably had some pretty bad wounds, but that I wasn't going to die or bleed out on that beach right there. And that I was going to make and again, I could tell I could talk. I was, I had an injured leg. I even was able to hop, like he wrapped it up, and then I was able to hop to the, oh no, they brought the little beach wheelchair down, but I was able to hop to the little beach wheelchair. So I got a little off track. What was the original question there?
Well, I think we were just kind of talking about the fact that like you were in the hospital, you did your first interviews from there.
Yes.
And then, to go through a little bit more about what the healing was like in the immediate aftermath. Yeah.
Yes. So because I knew that it would be incredibly interesting, because I'm a person and shark attacks are interesting, even when they happen to you. And I also wanted people to know I was okay, because all they know is woman attacked at local beach. Right. There's a shark that attacked somebody at a local beach. So in my head, I was like, I need to let people know that, like, I don't want the rumor mill to start, like, of everything. So I did that. But also somebody pointed out I was probably just running on adrenaline at that point too. And most likely for several months afterward, it's just a big jolt. So I stayed in the hospital for about almost a week for the initial wounds, because they wanted to make sure that things were healing properly and that everything was and I mean, it was a big gash. Like I had, I'd only severed one hamstring muscle in my leg. The shark had gotten that. But other than that, it was literally all flesh wounds, but they were wide and they were open and they were jagged, and they hadn't stitched them, because you shouldn't stitch puncture wounds. And then I had a big gash that was deep, but it was irregular too. So they're like, yeah, we're not stitching anything. So they wanted to keep me in the hospital and make sure it was healing. And then we were also waiting for, I had a wound vacuum, which, you guys both nod. So you're familiar with wound vacuum, but many people aren't. It's, I'd never been aware of it before, but it basically was like this, they put this like gauzy type stuff, and they packed the wounds with it. They packed, I don't know, a bunch of the punctures that were like 4 centimeters deep. And then the big gash was packed with it. And then they put like a little tube into the fabric. And then they put like the transparent, I can't even think of it. It's like saran wrap. I always think of that, but it's, but it's medical. Okay. Medical saran wrap. They put it on top. And then they basically vacuum seal it. So then there's a machine that attaches to the straws that are coming into the wounds that are the tubes, and it goes like that, and it just sucks it up. And the wound vacuums are good for a couple of reasons. The first is that there's negative pressure, so there's not as much pain. I did have some pain, but it was not, between being able to rest, being on pain meds, and the wound vac, I'm like, I'm doing okay. And then it also is sanitary, right? So it's kind of a sealed thing, except they did have to change it every so often. So I had that, and we were waiting for a portable one to come to the hospital, because I couldn't go home with the big one that's the hospital's. So once I got the portable wound vac, I was sent home with that. And then a home care nurse came to see me every 2 to 3 days to change the dressing and check the wound to make sure it was healing properly. So that was kind of the rehab from the physical stuff, was just kind of, and I just kind of laid low. I was really tired. I was on my couch a lot. I wasn't, even though I wasn't in terrible pain. I was still fatigued. The wound was healing well. And then I somehow developed an allergy to whatever that medical saran wrap was. And I had to pull it off. So it was because it was creating these kind of really itchy red blisters on my skin. So when the home health care nurse came, I showed him, and I was like, hey, what are we going to do about this? And he's like, yeah, I think you need to take the bandage off, and then I'll figure out what to do, but I'm just going to put a dressing on it for now. So we did that. And literally the next day I woke up and my right leg was swollen. The thigh was swollen and red and a little bit hot. And they had told me when they discharged me from the hospital, if your leg swells, is red, or is hot, go to the ER. Don't even call us. Don't call your doctor. Don't be like, let's see if it gets better. Just go straight to the ER. So I did. And they checked me in. And then one of the ER docs came in and said, I remember this guy too. I've seen so many doctors, and I remember this guy. He was like, do you feel okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. Just got this swollen leg. And he's like, have you had a temperature? I'm like, no, just this. And he's like, you have MRSA in your blood. And
yeah.
And so this was I'd been out of the hospital like 10 days to 2 weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long. And so then I was back in the hospital, because MRSA, you don't, okay, this is where I would swear you don't F with MRSA, right?
No, you don't. Yeah, that's right.
So they admitted me right away. And then another complication is that I'm allergic to a lot of antibiotics.
Oh.
And MRSA is, I think it's like strain resistant, whatever it's called.
It's like antibiotic
So
resistant.
they had to put me on antibiotic, IV antibiotics to try to kill the MRSA, but also hopefully not kill me while administering the antibiotics.
Yeah.
So I was in the hospital again for more. I was there for a week with that because they don't release you from the hospital. You have to have your blood clear for, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 days. So after the last positive test, you still have to be in the hospital for 2 to 3 more days just to make sure. And then on top of that, they were monitoring to make sure that I wouldn't have this horrible reaction to the antibiotics, which fortunately I did not. But then I got sent home, not with a wound vac, but with a portable IV and a port in my upper arm. Mm-hmm. And twice a day, I had to give myself the IV antibiotics for another 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's almost like injury on top of injury, right? Except more than an injury when you're talking about MRSA. But your body's going through a tremendous amount to try and heal from the original injury. And then to that's your body's just working so hard to then heal from the MRSA. I mean, at that point, were you even thinking about how do I get back into my body and my athletic life? And will I ever get in the water again? Where was your sort of mental state and your emotional state at that point? I
was just focused on healing at that point. And everyone asked me whether it was a news interview or a friend or an acquaintance. They're like, do you think you'll get back in the water? And I'm like, I'm not ready to answer that question right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was like, I got to deal with all this first, and then we'll deal with all that.
Can you run more mileage without getting hurt? Return to running sooner after an injury.
Keep your fitness even when you're facing a setback? Or get to the start line healthy and faster? If you ask our friends at Lever Movement, you just might find the answer to all of these questions is a resounding yes. We are thrilled to welcome Lever Movement back as our sponsor for Season 9 of the Injured Athletes Club podcast. And if all that sounds good, they have an offer that makes it easier than ever for you to try the Lever system for yourself. In case you haven't heard about it yet, the Lever system is a portable, lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. This is very good news for all of us athletes because it means less impact on the joints, so we can come back from injury safely or even prevent getting hurt in the first place. And the best part is that it's portable. That means you can use it at home or even take it to the gym and set it up in less than 2 minutes.
Elite athletes like marathoner Sarah Hall and Jess Lehrmanth, an Olympic gold medalist in triathlon, have used Lever in their training and rehab routines. And we know, so have many of you in the Injured Athletes Club. If you'd like to check out the Lever system for yourself, use the discount code INJURED20 to get 20% off any device. And stay tuned here on the podcast and in the Facebook group for the Injured Athletes Club this season. We'll have more exciting updates from our partnership. We have some fun plans in the works with Lever we know you're going to want to check out. When did you kind of start to feel a little bit more like yourself physically? And I'm curious how the timing of that aligned with kind of the PTSD symptoms and how that all kind of unfolded.
Yeah. Physically, so let's see, it was November 4th. By early December, I was doing pretty good. I had the IV antibiotics out or almost out. I went on a cruise with my daughter in the second or third week of December that we'd been planning. And I'd asked my doctors, I was like, okay, are you positive that I am okay to go on this trip? And they're like, yes. And by the way, every cruise ship has a doctor on board. So, and whatever. We weren't going like way out to sea. We were just going down to Ensenada, which from San Diego it's like, you're still pretty close to shore. They could have gotten anyone, me or anybody else, in quickly if they needed to. So physically was feeling better. I actually got back at the pool like as soon as I could, as soon as the wound was healed, which I think was only like 2 months later, honestly.
Wow.
And then throughout that spring, again, I just was trying to get back in shape, get back into the swing of things. And that, and then I tried to go ocean swimming. I went with my, we went down to a different beach, which is much shallower. A lot of people swim and dive there. It's La Jolla Cove. I'm sure Carrie has potentially heard of it. And people swim. There's people swimming, snorkeling, like doing all sorts of stuff at this beach. So we went. They had started to go down there instead of to the beach where I was attacked at, which was Del Mar, because we found out after I was attacked that at any given time there were 100 juvenile great white sharks in like a 3-mile radius. It was a nursery. And we knew that. We didn't know. Okay. So we didn't know there were 100, but people would see sharks at this beach a lot. And for the most part, they didn't bother people, right? They were the juveniles, but once the group realized like kind of how many were there, they moved to different beaches outside of that zone. So we went down to La Jolla Cove, and I was really excited, but I was scared. I remember getting in the water and just screaming the entire time, even though I could see the bottom. And I was trying to climb on the back. I was still swimming, but I was also trying to be as close to the other person as possible, which you can't do, right? So then it was David. He was like, Lyn, you're going to drown both of us. You have to get off my back. So it was fine. I finished it, but it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I still tried a couple more times after that. And then at some point I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And then that's when the PTSD started. So about 6 to 8 months after, and this is, so, and I think learning a lot more about PTSD, it can be a traumatic injury or incident, or it can be from not being able to exercise or to run because
that's right.
of whatever, like it's something that's so disruptive in your mind or your body that it's that. So for me, I didn't know enough about it though. I always thought that it was like the stuff that you would see in movies, where there's bombs going off and the soldiers are like looking around and they're sweating and you could just palpable tension and you're like, oh, that guy has PTSD. But that for me, it started slowly and each symptom came on and I didn't say, oh, I think that this might be mental. I thought it was all physical. It was all physical symptoms. And then also a lot of people are like, oh, but you don't, you can just not go, like there's not going to be any sharks here on land, right? So what are you scared of? And I'm like, but the body doesn't differentiate.
That's right.
It keeps you in that state of fight or flight longer than necessary. And then sometimes you get stuck. And that's what my body was stuck in it. The first symptom that I remember is just a racing heart, like 100 beats a minute for no reason. Like I'd wake up in the morning for it. So then I thought I had a heart problem. So I went to my doctor and they did all the tests and they're like, no, you don't have a heart problem. It could be anxiety. And I'd been treated for anxiety even before the shark attack. So they're like, talk to your psychiatrist, not our problem. So I'm like, okay, so I don't know what to do about that. And then the next thing was getting terrible social anxiety, but I didn't know it because I thought I still wasn't recognizing this. So I distinctly remember I'd gone back to my mom's in Erie for 4th of July, because growing up, 4th of July had been like the best day of the year. There was fireworks. We'd go to the local pool. We'd celebrate. There was kid games. It was like my favorite thing growing up. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to Erie on the 4th of July and celebrate with my mom. So I get back there and on the day of the 4th, I'm like starting to feel really bad at like 2 or 3 o'clock. And I'd had migraines in the past and I was like, oh, I'm either getting sick or I might have a migraine coming on. Like, I don't know. But I physically was like, I don't feel good. And so I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry. I don't think I can go. I'm like, I think I'm sick. And so we didn't go and I got into bed and I woke up in the morning and I was fine. I was like, huh, interesting. But that had to happen like 4 times in different scenarios until I was like, oh, wait a minute. I see a pattern. Okay. I see a pattern here. Yeah. Like I'm not it is physical. It is physical. I am exhibiting actual physical symptoms. Yeah. But I am not sick and it is not a migraine. Yeah. So that was the second thing that I was like, what is going on now? I should have written these down, but like I said, it came on symptom by, hypervigilance. Oh my goodness. I'm much better now for various reasons, but like anything, like literally the phone ringing at a normal level, people talking in the next room that might have been a little bit loud. It would bother me, and I would jump and I would scream. And I also couldn't stand any sort of loud noises like our dog barking or being in a crowd was a definite no. And that was like, my kids thought it was funny. So they're like, oh, startle mom. And she has this, she has that, like, like how babies have that startle reflex. I don't know if you're aware of it, where they test it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was like that. I was doing it like 20 or 30 times a day, which takes a toll.
Yeah. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once you hit that startle response, it's easier for it to get activated. And so, like, for you to experience it so many times, like, it's debilitating.
It is debilitating. Yeah. It was debilitating. Yeah. It was making me feel sick. And between that and the social anxiety, I just, like I said, I kind of just stopped going to things unless they were absolutely necessary. And then when I did, I would like hide so that people couldn't see me or come up with me.
But I love that you shared that, like, because you are literally having a physical response, right? Yes. There's a physiological response that's happening that we often don't recognize, that where it's originating from, right? Like that it's like, something's wrong with me physically. I need to address the physical. And we don't think to go, oh, wait a minute. So it's great that you were able to recognize a pattern, like, oh, there's a pattern here. And I think I'm starting to become aware of that. It's not just the physiological piece that I need to work on. So when did it become apparent to you where it was like, okay, it's time for me to work on this kind of mental emotional piece?
Well, okay. I'd been seeing a psychiatrist already for other issues prior to that, but everything was just kind of like, I kept going and saying like, hey, things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then the crew, not my swim partner, he says he'll never swim at that beach again. Right. Actually, I think he has by now though, but that's because the sharks have dissipated. But again, they're still there. Sharks are in the ocean. They're always in the ocean. But the group in general had gone back to swimming in Del Mar because it would only been the two of us that day. And then two other of our group had been walking their dog, and they were planning to meet us for breakfast after. So they were kind of there on scene too. And then they were also like, no more Del Mar for us. But the group went back. And so in June of 2024, another swimmer from that group was attacked during the Sunday 8 a.m. swim.
Oh, okay.
And so everybody was with him, and he is, as far as I know, physically, again, as far as I know, okay. He was like bleeding a lot more. Like the shark got him in the chest first, and then he did punch it, and then he tore up a bunch of his, I don't know if it was a major artery. So, but again, apparently he was very, very bloody. And the swimmers, fortunately, there was a bigger group there. And so some of the stronger swimmers brought him in. And once I heard that story, I was like, I just crumbled. I was like crying. It was like, I was like, and then I felt guilty because I'm like, why am I making this about me? It's this guy. But, and then that just kind of set me into a downward spiral. And then by August, I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I don't know, I'm not sure what to do. And then I did do something. I actually ended up checking myself into a mental health facility on my birthday, on my 52nd birthday, for a month, so that I could work. I wanted to get I had several goals. The first of which was being able to concentrate completely on myself, because I still had kids at home and dogs and cats and a husband and a job that I was still trying to do. And between all that, you can't necessarily concentrate completely on your mental health,
on your healing
or your healing. So that, and I also thought I needed different medication because I had been taking anxiety medication already, but I was still taking the same medication that I had been before the shark attack. And the doctor I was seeing wasn't super good with PTSD. He just kept wanting to talk. He's like, yeah. But when you were 20, and I'm like, no, let's talk about, this is the bigger elephant at this point.
Yeah.
So I went to a local, my insurance covered it, most of it.
Amazing.
And I did just that. I was in group or individual therapy all day. I was on a schedule. but it was, and everybody there, it was like mostly a rehab facility, but some of the rehab for alcohol and substance abuse. But a lot of them now have realized like that there's enough, first of all, there's enough comorbidities, but then there's also enough patients to like, and there's a similar healing process from a lot of the, stuff that they could be in the same facility. So, but just therapy all day, every day, pretty much, breathing techniques, learn to do jigsaw puzzles, even though I hated doing them before. They're an incredible way to just take your mind off stuff for 2 hours. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, 2 hours is gone. And I haven't been anxious and I haven't been, whatever you wanted to say. And then I experimented with some meds and found meds that were that helped a lot more.
I was just going to pause for a minute there because I think it is really powerful that you did that for yourself and recognize the fact that they're just like a human body and mind only has so many resources, and when you're spread so thin, you can't focus on the healing. And also, you just needed to put yourself in that environment where that was 100% the focus. And
which is a significant act of courage to do that, especially when you're a parent and you have other responsibilities, like the guilt that comes or feeling like I should be able to figure this out on my own. Like, I also think because it's such a tremendous act of courage, other athletes listening will definitely identify with that and how hard that decision is. Like, I think that's a really big piece of it, is that people think, maybe on the surface, people might think that that's an easy decision. Like, oh, of course, that's what I need to go do. And I'm going to take a month off to go do that. And like, that is not an easy decision to make.
What's weird is I'm not embarrassed by it. I am a champion for it. Like, anytime somebody's struggling, I'm always like, oh, you should, like, probably too much, right? Like, like my friend has a bad day. I'm like, well, you can.
This is an option.
Oh, that was okay. So to work that in, when I say a bad day, something that I thought of that I wanted to bring up on this podcast that I've been telling people is that I think it's everywhere, but in California in particular, there's a brand called, and it says No Bad Days, right? And it's on T-shirts and bumper stickers and surfboards and whatever, right? And what I learned at CASA was the name of the place that I went, or half of the name, is that is an unrealistic expectation.
Yeah.
And again, athletes, as well as type A personalities or whatever, they striving when somebody's like, oh, no bad days, absolutely nailed it. And so when you do have a bad day, you think something is terribly wrong with you and you're defective, right?
That's right.
So I'm always, I have my note on my thing says no bad days equals bullshit. Like, by the way, that's
100%. I agree with that. Yes.
And so a lot of it has been accepting. And with this injury, even more so, that, like I said before, a recovery from anything, whether it's a cold or a shark attack or a bad accident or a torn Achilles or a chronic injury in your nagging injury in your shoulder, it's not linear. It's not every day I'm going to get better, and every day is going to be good. So
that's right. Yeah. And that I can have a bad day, and I am having a bad day.
Yeah.
And how I feel right now isn't how I will always feel. Right. But you're right that, like, I see people kind of feel shame if they have a bad day. Like, so there's something wrong with me, that I can't turn this around, or that I'm not positive. Like, that's just not how it works. Yeah. So I love that you were able to kind of recognize that for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It's helped a lot. And then another thing that I wanted to mention, I'll get into this more, is that I think that this is really important, and we didn't know this at the time. So I was 50 when I got attacked by the shark, but I'd had early menopause, and I'd been on hormone replacement therapy for a good 5 years by then. And I knew, like, so the reason I'd gone on was because I was really depressed and anxious. And like, I tried the black cohosh, I tried the over-the-counter stuff. I, twirled 3 times under the full moon. Like, I did everything that they tell you to do to try to help with menopause symptoms. And then my OBGYN was like, okay, let's put you on HRT. Let's do it. And I felt so much better. And I got to say that, like, leading up to the shark attack, the years like 47 to 50, COVID excluded were like some of the best times when I felt mentally healthy. I felt physically healthy. Like everything was going pretty good. And then I got attacked by a shark. But so one thing that happened with the recovery with the shark, though, is they found blood clots in my leg. Now, I'd had significant trauma in my leg and my crotch area. So it was very possible that the clots were caused from that, but they had to watch them. And I don't know if you know this, but one of the contraindications for HRT is blood clots because they can exacerbate them. So I went off the HRT and I didn't really think about it. I was like, yeah, I have to do this because I have blood clots and whatever, it'll be fine. And then not until last spring when I was telling my friend going back, because I think that made the PTSD worse. It made the anxiety worse. It makes everything worse. Menopause makes, not everyone, people have varying levels, but it can really affect you. So I'd gone off the HRT and I was still struggling. Even when I went to CASA, like it was, it was like not my best self. And at some point last spring, my friend who's a doctor said, I was talking to her about it and she goes, at this point, she's like, I really think you should press your OBGYN more because if the blood clots are gone, which they'd cleared up within 3 months after the accident, all I'd done was take baby aspirin. And she said, she's like, maybe you could go back on them now, if it's affecting your life that much. And she's like, but I'm not a hematologist. And I was like, I know a hematologist. So I called the hematologist and she said, and I told her, I said, hey, this is what's been going on. What do you recommend? And she said, okay, ask your doctor to get these tests. And she listed like 6 tests and they basically determine whether you have a predilection for blood clots or if you're normal, right? So everybody can get a blood clot, right? But there are some people that are going to be more predisposed to them than others. So these tests show you if you have kind of that. And so I did, and it came back all negative. And my OBGYN did not want to do it, but I told her, I'm like, can you imagine like how much I'm struggling if I am openly saying I realize that I need this. So I went back on and then started again to immensely within a month or two. So this was probably like April of 2025. I started feeling better physically. Again, I was getting back in the pool. I wasn't really back in the ocean. I was in the ocean, but only up to like my waist to, I don't know, but I was feeling really good. And I was, even the week before this accident that I'm going to tell you about, I told my husband, I'm like, God, I feel better than I have in years since the shark attack. And that was like Monday. And so the anniversary of the shark attack was coming up November 4th. And this is true again for any trauma for any person, whether you're an athlete or not, that the anniversary of significant events, especially traumatic, brings angst, right? And sometimes it's just a little like I feel uncomfortable around this time of year to a full on like I'm not going to come out of my room for a week around this time of year type of thing. And so I was like, you know what though, I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to make November 4th a good day. I'm going to make it a celebration instead of this thing that I just think about this trauma that happened to me. And so one of my best friends took me out to lunch. I had a plan again, of course. Apparently I'm not supposed to make plans ever. So we were going to go out to lunch by the local beach, not the one where I was attacked, but one up from it. And then that night I told my husband the same thing. I was like, I'm going to make this a good day. And he's like, that's great. I'm going to take you out for sushi. Like, we're going to make this like a good day. I'm like, this is wonderful. I told my psychiatrist about it. And he's like, that is the best idea. You go for it, girl. And so we finished lunch and go down to the beach. And I hadn't brought my wetsuit because I didn't think I'd be on long. It was supposed to be more kind of, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Symbolic than anything.
Yeah.
So, but I got in. And usually in November, the water's really cold, but it wasn't. It was like kind of warm. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got it. I waded in a little bit deeper. And then I started, this is what's really embarrassing. And this is where I didn't tell a lot of people this for a long time. I started like rage yelling at the water and like raising my fists. And like, I was like screaming and like letting out emotion. And I did do this. I flipped off the ocean with both fingers.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish I hadn't done that, but I did. And again, not saying that caused it, but
Right.
I started going out farther, and then a set came in. And for those people who are not near the ocean, aren't familiar with it, waves tend to come in sets. So usually like anywhere from 3 to 5 waves will roll in, and then there'll be kind of a flat period. So a set started coming in, and I wasn't out far enough to catch it yet. So I duck dived under the first two, which is basically, again, you just swim to the bottom and keep swimming out under the wave. And I popped my head up after the second. I was like, ooh, I think I can get this third one. And so I turned and I took off. And this is hard to explain if you've never body surfed or surfed, but if you try to catch a wave and you miss it, it's called going over the falls, or you get tumbled. There's different ways that you can, my friends called it getting wrangled. It's basically instead of you riding the wave is riding you. So, and it just flops you around. And the last things I remember I thought, oh, I'm going over the falls, which I'd done hundreds, if not thousands of times before in my life. Because you body surf even when you're just going to the beach with your kids. Like that's like not like swimming. Like you can just go and do that. Like, and then my second thought was, wow, this is the strongest wave I've ever been on. Because something else that I learned about is that waves have a certain energy. So it's not just the height of the wave that matters. In fact, it doesn't kind of matters once you get above those, where like they're towing the people out on the jet ski to go surfing.
Right.
But basically like a 4-foot wave with X, whatever the unit of energy is very different from a 4-foot wave with Y energy. And 4-foot with X is great. It's surfable. It's perfect. 4-foot with Y is dangerous. And you do hear about surfers. Body surfers, this is a common injury. So what I also didn't know was that there was a sandbar. So I had taken off in water that was above my head, thinking that I was going to, ride the wave into the shore like I usually do. So I don't remember the impact, but I was thrown headfirst into a very shallow and very forcefully, like I said, and I've ridden thousands of waves. It was the strongest wave I've ever been on. So when I came to, which I didn't know I'd come to because I didn't know I'd blacked out, I just heard, I was still in the middle of getting tumbled by this wave. And I just heard a crack in the middle of my back, and I felt it too. And then just the most intense pain that I've ever felt in my entire life. Knock on wood. Every time I have something painful happen, something more painful happens. But I was like, oh, and then I'm like, I've broken my back. And I was like, and this was weird because I was by myself. First of all, even though my friend was there, she doesn't like to go in the ocean. So she was like fully clothed watching me on the beach. It was November, so there weren't a lot of people there. Fortunately, California city beaches are guarded throughout the year, which is thank God. And I knew enough. I'd been a lifeguard for years, and I know about from swimming that when you think you've broken your back or your neck, you just don't move. You try to move as little as possible, because it is totally true. The like urban myth of Joe who went surfing and like hit his head and seemed fine, and then somebody slaps him on the back later on, and oops, his neck is broken, right?
Yeah.
So unlike the shark attack, so I was still thinking I had the exact same goal. There was only one goal, that was get to the lifeguards, but I was really injured this time, and that was it. Should have been terrifying, but it was more just, oh, this is going to be a lot harder. But I don't want to downplay it. I was really scared this time because I was not only did I know I'd broken my back, but like I could have drowned because I broke. Okay, so to summarize my injuries, somehow in one wave, I crushed C3 through 6 and T1 through 3. They were burst fractures, which means they were like, and also T12 and T11 somehow. And most likely the T12 is the one that I heard and felt because I had blacked out for the breaking of the upper part of the back and the neck. But I had no idea about the neck, or that I'd even hit my head. I had no idea that I'd done that. And so I was just trying to I was in a lot of pain and I was very weak, and I was trying to kind of assess my situation of like, okay, what should I do? And then I was on my back somehow, and the water was still coming over my face. And fortunately, again, from being a lifelong swimmer, I'm comfortable with water rolling over my face without being able to do much about it. So it was like going in my nose because I couldn't plug my nose. But you just let it, when you do that, you just let it trickle to the back of your mouth. But so I was like, okay, number one, don't drown. Number two, you got to somehow signal somebody to come out and get you. And so your viewers won't be able to see this, but like the best I could do was like, I like raised my hand like this. And then
it's not very high, listeners.
Not very high and very weakly. And then I also, this is the stuff of nightmares. Many people have had the nightmare where you're in trouble and you want to shout help, but nothing comes out, or you're like, help. So then I'm like, maybe I should call for help. And it was literally, it went, help. Because my body, because I was so injured that I was so weak that was the best I could muster. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like, but also in such intense pain that I also wasn't thinking about a lot other than the pain and how am I going to get myself to shore? My friend, luckily, instead of, like she'd said, she could have taken a walk down the beach. She should have been looking at her phone. She could have been doing a lot of stuff, but she'd been watching me very closely. And she said that she saw my hand come up, but she was like, I thought you were waving at me. But she said that she was more looking at me, and she was like, she doesn't look right. Like she's not moving in the water the way that she normally moves. So she came running out fully clothed to come get me. And as soon as she got out there, I said, I've broken my back. You've got to get to the lifeguards. And I go, and you have to not move me very much. And she kept her calm too. I mean, she was starting to cry and panic a little bit, and she was trying to move me in. And then she did get the lifeguards to notice, and they came speeding down. And then this part is a little bit blurry for me. I don't remember being put on the backboard. And I was in, like I said, unlike the shark attack, like this time I was in so much pain that nothing, like almost nothing else mattered. So I went back to the exact same emergency room that I'd been to 3 years earlier in my swimsuit as usual. And a couple things though that were interesting is that the lifeguards had done, because I had told them, I said I'd broken my back, they were doing the tests. And I had a wound on my head that I didn't know about. So, and I'd bitten my lower lip in like half, but I was like, when did I do that? I don't remember doing that. So they were doing the tests where they tap your hands and they tap your feet. Can you feel this? Can you feel this? Like going up your leg. Can you squeeze my finger? And I could do all of that very weakly. And so I don't think that they didn't believe me, but I don't think they knew it was like such a high priority. So when I got to the emergency room, like same thing. I was in shock though. I was shuddering a lot. And I mean, they had to pump the pain medication into me like as much as I could, that they were like okay with doing.
Yeah.
And so I went finally to it was either a CAT scan or an MRI. I was lying down. And the people who had taken me there, which I think were like a medical assistant and two volunteers or whatever it was, they were like kind of talking normally outside. And then everything got quiet. And one guy goes, okay, we have multiple neck fractures. We need to be very careful moving this patient. And a part of me said, I told you so in my head. But then the other part was like, wait, my neck? So yeah.
Wow.
Questions about that experience? I know it's a lot.
Well, and how, like, I'm sure in the moment, it's just, like everything becomes about what's happening in that moment, right? And it's not until later that then I'm imagining, you tell us, like I'm imagining that sometimes it came from people's reactions, but also like sometimes we don't come to certain realizations about our experience until later when there's space, right? Because so much of your energy, both emotional and physical, goes to the healing process that sometimes I'm thinking of a client that I'm working with right now who's going through this process where it wasn't until later that a lot of the big emotions are coming around like, oh my gosh, what the severity of what she went through. And so I'm thinking about that for you and your situation where I wonder, like, you know, in the beginning, it's just like, I know I broke my back. I need to get to shore. I need to not drown, right? It becomes about the immediate needs that you have. And then I'm wondering if it wasn't until later that like the feelings around like some of the other emotions that maybe come up, like, you know, my first thought, of course, goes to like, you were doing this incredible, symbolic, wonderful thing for yourself, right? On the anniversary. And then like, what the fuck just
It's
happened?
actually, yes, I have a novel in progress, and the working title is "What the Actual Fuck." So,
Yeah, there you go.
And I do. At some point, I called my psychiatrist and told him what had happened. He almost didn't believe me, and then he saw my medical records, and then I'm like, "Can you believe that this happened?" And he's like, "No." Like,
Right.
So I don't know. And again, I'm only about 3.5 months out. So this happened.
Right.
But I will be, knock on wood, more prepared. I'm of being very careful watch on my mental health, but I'm still in the physical healing stage. I only started PT last week because I had surgery to fuse. I have pins and rods all in my neck. I am the bionic woman from the base of my head down to the top of my spine. So they wanted to heal the T12 conservatively because they didn't want to have to do 2 major surgeries around the same time. So it did heal. I have some issues from it. Like, it's not great. There's stuff doesn't look the way it's supposed to on an x-ray, but it's not pressing on my spinal canal. So the long way into this is that I'm still physically recovering. I only went to physical therapy for the first time last week and my second time yesterday. Because I needed all the bones to heal before doing anything. Because the neurosurgeon he's like, don't mess up my work. Like, no, you can walk and you can move your head gently. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in a neck brace 24/7 for the first month, like sleeping, everything. And I'm still wearing my back brace. And I didn't get out of bed the first week, except to eventually I started painfully going to the bathroom at the end of that. But before I'd had a catheter. But yeah, so I still am focusing on the physical, but hopefully going to stay very aware of the mental and emotional. But right at the beginning, it was like the first couple of days, I felt very, very, very sorry for myself, and I thought the universe was how cruel. How cruel is this, right? Yeah. And then at some point, I was like, it's just ridiculous. Like it's like laughable. But here's the thing. That's because I'm okay. Right. And I'm not, it was, the doctor said it's amazing. Just same thing with the shark attack. The shark attack, it missed my femoral artery by like this much. And then with this, the neurosurgeon was like, you should be paralyzed. If not even from the neck down, from the waist down, but you're not. Like you're going to make a full recovery. It's going to take like a year, but like I can say it's laughable because I am not dead. I'm not paralyzed.
You're here having this conversation with it. Yeah,
like, absolutely. It sucked. I do not recommend it. I don't want to do it again, but it could have been so much worse. So in both instances. So
right. Well, and congratulations on getting to PT. We're big on celebrating milestones, and that's a very big milestone. Yeah. So how are you feeling? I'm just curious, like, how are you feeling kind of now in this phase of your recovery, testing out your body in that way? And how did it feel going to PT?
It was good. I mean, I've been going to PT on and off for 25 years for various things, right? So it was also, I walked in this time and I looked at the therapist and he's like, yeah, seriously. I'm like, so it felt good, but I'm starting very gentle. I mean, I did like one set of squats, right? And then there's muscle work and twist and stretching and that type of stuff. But it was good. It's good. I also, to be fair, and I don't know if you want to leave this in or not, but I'm still on a fair amount of pain medication. And I will be for a while because that's the only way I'm going to get to therapy or that I can function and start up my job again and do like life things. So that tends to make your mood a little bit better too. Right. So I'll be curious to see, I'm positive right now, and I'm hoping that it's mostly just outlook based, but to be completely fair, it could be medication as well. So, and I notice it a lot. That's where this is like with everything, like I'll be hurting, like I'll have a lot of pain and then I'll take one of my medications. And then like an hour later, I like forget that I was in pain and I'm like, I'm cured. What am I talking about? I'm not weak. I'm not this. And then it wears off again. I'm like, oh, and I mean, I don't understand. I guess, and a lot of people do that. Like you literally forget in an instant the pain that you were in 2 hours ago, and you think that you are cured. But that's not for everybody. but I would not, this is what they said too, is that I'm not going to recover as quickly if I don't do this, because I'm not going to be motivated to do physical therapy or even move around my house. Right. I just want to the only time I'm not in pain is when I'm lying flat on my back.
Yeah. You mentioned the book, the memoir that you have in progress. And I was curious.
Just started.
Because of the way we connected, I thought maybe you had a book in you. Yeah. I know that our listeners will be eager to read it later on when it comes out, but what do you hope out of that process? And I guess, like you said, you're still very much in the healing process right now, but like what beyond some of the things that you've already said, or maybe reiterating some of the things that you've already said, what do you hope people take away from your story, or what do you most want to share with people through your story?
There's a couple things. After this accident, because after the shark attack, everyone was like, girl, you were put on this world for a reason. And I have to say that I really hated that, because I was like, I don't want to be this whatever. Like I am done. I want to hang out with my family. I wanted to go start getting better in shape in the water. I'm like, I don't know. No, thank you. I don't want that. But it was just like over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. And then I started struggling, and it didn't, like, I'm like, oh, but after the second incident, I'm like, I think maybe I'm supposed to write a book. I don't, I feel like I'm supposed to do something. But when I started to actually think about, okay, other than this is a very interesting story. So going back to what I would have been like if I hadn't experienced it, I would want to hear about it, right? Like it's got that. And I'd also like to talk about the PTSD in the book and destigmatize it, and, go over resources, and kind of also the shame that I felt, that I still feel, from being affected by it. So I think it's that. I mean, I have no idea if anyone's going to read it, even my family, but I guess you guys will. So yay. But if it were, it might be really popular. I don't know, but it's also, honestly, it's therapeutic for me too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story with us and with our listeners. And I do think it absolutely does help to normalize what you experienced, and let people know the truth behind the story, and let other people who are going through difficult things know that they're not alone in that. So thank you so much, Lyn, for being here with us today and for sharing all that. And we are going to be rooting for you in your recovery, in your book writing, in hopefully that return to your swimming that I know you actually want.
I've already been back in the pool, by the way, like earlier, like as soon as the wound healed, I felt terrible. I felt, but I got to say, this is something else with your specific podcast and with you, Carrie, is that the other trouble with athletes is that no matter what shape they're in, I need to beat all the other people in the pool.
Yes. Like a true athlete.
It's like, I'm like a month and a half out of a broken neck and back, and I'm like, oh, that guy next to me is going faster than I am.
You're like, I should be able to go faster than that guy.
And I started like immediately, not the first time or the second time, but the third time, I started to try to flip turn just to see if I could do it. And I looked like a 6-year-old doing like at the, like the whole thing. But for swimmers, for competitive swimmers, if you can't flip turn, you're not a swimmer, right? But that's against all the athletes I know, whether they're pro or competitive or college or high school, like they want to win. They want to be the best. So, and when you're recovering, you got to swallow that. You got to swallow that pride a bit.
Right. And know how to utilize the tool in a way that's effective versus potentially detrimental, right? That you can use that drive to really fuel your recovery, but you have to honor as what the body wants over, or what the body needs over what the mind wants. The mind wants to beat everybody in the pool, right? Like, but the body is letting you know, like, maybe not yet.
Yeah. Your best is just a little bit different that day.
That's right.
But Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Lyn, so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys.
We're going to continue to be thinking of you as you continue this journey.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Lyn for joining us and to our sponsor, Lever Movement, for making the show possible. And as always, we are so grateful to Jeremy Nessel for editing this and every single episode of the Injured Athletes Club podcast. We're grateful to you for listening too. We'd love it if you would subscribe, and if you like the show, we'd also really appreciate a rating and a review. That helps other injured athletes find us. You can do this by visiting injuredathletesclub.com/review, or just review it in any of the podcast apps you choose. We are just so grateful for all of your support in that way. And we have support to give back to you too. Between episodes and anytime, you can join our Facebook group, which is also called the Injured Athletes Club. There you'll find guidance, support, advice from other people who just get it. You can get links to that on our website, injuredathletesclub.com. We'll see you there.